Is 30 years too long for a Beetlejuice sequel? That's what we're here to talk about. Hi, everyone. You know me as Big Fella, and this is my buddy Jacob. He is a fellow film enthusiast and a fellow YouTuber, but goes by Christian Retro Lover 4. Check out his videos, they're very inspirational and very entertaining. So, so first off, dude, like, we saw Beetlejuice together. You saw the original, right?
Yeah.
And my question to you is, do you think like because it like came out like almost 30 years after the original, and like almost all the cast returned except for like Alec Baldwin. I don't remember the lady who played his wife in the film,
Yeah.
but like Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, and they all came back. But do you think that like 30 years is too long to wait for a sequel?
Um, I think it all depends. Recently Tim Burton's been doing a bunch of remakes and sequels, so maybe this may or may not have been the perfect time, depending on the person. Like, if somebody was sick of all these sequels and remakes that he was doing, then this may not be for them. But like, maybe the people who grew up with Beetlejuice and maybe even the Beetlejuice animated series, they would love to see Beetlejuice on the big screen once again and catch all the references from the original and the series.
Yeah, and like I said, we saw this film. Like, did we see it the day it came out, or like a couple days after that?
I think a couple days after.
Okay, so we saw this film and it was very entertaining. Like Michael Keaton did not lose his touch as Beetlejuice. Winona Ryder was excellent as always. I did like the addition of Jenna Ortega, who has been in a lot of like scary movies lately, and she was also in another Tim Burton property, Wednesday, where she played Wednesday Adams, and they did really good with her in that. And they're actually in the second season is in development right now, and she was really good as Astrid. Lydia's daughter in the film, so she did a really good job. So it was they were introducing like new blood into this franchise, and I will say that I enjoyed this. We really enjoyed it. You got the popcorn bucket, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we saw the movie. It was really good. The one thing that really confused me though was like the ending, where we saw like Beetlejuice, like
Yeah.
he like filled up like a balloon, he popped, and then we see Lydia and Astrid like moving on with their lives, and then like supposedly she meets this guy at Dracula's castle. They get married, they have a kid, and then boom, she pops out a baby Beetlejuice who proceeds to massacre the staff until he pops up in the bed and goes, "Mommy," and then Lydia like wakes up, and then Beetlejuice is next to her. I'm just like, okay, so does that mean like is he like in like her mind or something? Like is
Yeah.
like oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you can. Okay, so that's what I was actually confused about too. At the end of the original Beetlejuice, it seems like he's stuck in the spiritual world or whatever. So that's probably what happens at the end of Beetlejuice 2. But my question is, why is he now coming back to basically haunt her? Because like at the beginning of Beetlejuice, you can see how even 30 years later she still sees him. But I don't know if that's interpreted as she's always been seeing him for 30 years or he just comes back now after 30 years. But even then, he didn't know about her father's death yet.
Yeah, like okay, if he's like been like stalking her from the spirit world for the last 30 years, sure. Well, don't forget like her father died like near like the very beginning. So
Yeah.
it's possible that like he didn't know until like he eventually saw like his head bitten off, which I found was hilarious. Like the dude literally had like the entire like this section of his body's gone, his head is gone, but somehow he can still talk.
Yeah, I do kind of like how they did the character justice without bringing back the actor because of some new stuff brought to light.
Okay, yeah, we won't get into that,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
overall, like this film was very entertaining. Like in the fact that like Catherine O'Hara was hilarious. Like in the fact that like
Yeah.
she was doing all this weird stuff to commemorate her husband's death, like making like art out of it, and the fact that like his tombstone was shaped like a shark's fin. Like what? Talk about pouring salt in the wound, man.
And then she tries to like this weird ritual
The
or whatever.
Egyptian thing
Yeah.
with the snakes. and they weren't defanged, and boom, one bite and she's dead. I'm like, would you literally pay, like, I think she paid like 25 grand each for those things and paid extra to have them defanged? I'm like, what the hell?
Where did, where was she? Where did she buy those from? You know, like what kind of sick
Yeah, because you can't.
dude just gets 50 grand and then decides to still let her die?
Yeah, like, okay, the only person I would imagine spending that much money on something like that would probably be Mr. Beast. But I don't know. I don't know, like, what, if they ever did something like that, what would they do with snakes? But yeah, like, I loved it. Like I said, the only thing that I really complained about was the ending. Other than that, like, it was good. It was a decent film, and I don't think like it needs another sequel, because I think Tim Burton himself even said, like, he was I don't know how old he is. I think like he's in his 70s now.
Maybe
Yeah,
60s,
yeah,
something like
somewhere
that.
around there. And like he said in an interview, like it took 30 years for this film to get made, and if he made another one, he'd be over 100. And I don't think personally that not a lot of people can make it to 100 unless like they're absolutely healthy or at their prime. I don't know, but yeah, I'm not sure if we'll ever get another Beetlejuice. But to be fair, I think it ended on a decent way. But I will say that even though like she didn't get a whole lot of time to shine, I did like Monica Bellucci as Dolores. Remember Beetlejuice's ex?
Yeah, I was kind of rewatching it. I was kind of bummed out that they didn't really give her more like lore besides like an old black and white
Yep.
flashback, which was still kind of funny.
Yeah, and the fact that like she was just like a death cultist, and that like she killed Beetlejuice so that they
Yeah,
could be together in death. I will say that the part where like her body parts fell out of the boxes and
yeah,
she put herself back together by literally stapling the skin together, I thought, ugh. But to be fair, that's perfectly on par with Tim Burton, because he's made his fair share of like creepy movies that have that like gothic aesthetic,
oh
but
yeah,
it was still very very good.
yeah. I think what I've also heard is that um he didn't use too much CGI in
Yeah,
this. Like he still used the classic practical effects, and this wasn't just like last minute. I think he mentioned in an interview or something like he always kind of had an idea to bring back Beetlejuice.
yeah, and like you said, they also made a Beetlejuice animated series, which I watched. It does not get talked about enough, because I don't think, did any of the cast return for that one or no?
I'm not sure. I actually haven't watched it.
Okay. Well, I've watched it. I don't remember how I did, but I do remember it was very good. I mean, for a product of its time, it's fine. Like compared to a lot of cartoons nowadays, I would rather watch like an old good cartoon than a crappy modern cartoon. But on the subject of like sequels that like have been like long in the making, like Beetlejuice is just one of quite a few films like in the last like 10 years that have been like say like the film was made like 20, 30 years ago and it's being made now. Like a few years ago, Top Gun Maverick came out like in 2018. Well, it no, not that one didn't come out in 2018, but Incredibles 2 came out in 2018 and Incredibles came out in 2004, so that's like 14 years. But then like we've got Top Gun Maverick, and most recently we've gotten Gladiator 2, which I haven't watched yet. A lot of the people who have watched it though that I've talked to say that it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't watched Gladiator 2 either, but I did watch the original Gladiator, and it's probably one of my favorite movies. And be, and mostly because of the like ending, I won't try to spoil it for anybody, but like the ending does kind of like wrap up the characters. So this sequel feels pretty unnecessary, especially because it's supposed to be related. It's supposed to be, I think, the child from the original Gladiator, or one of the relatives of
I think it was the
Phoenix's.
kid, yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, I also agree with this statement, because like Gladiator, like I love that movie too. I love a lot of Ridley Scott's work, but in my opinion, this was not a film that needed a sequel. I mean, if like you want to like expand the story a little bit, that's fine. but it didn't really feel like there needed to be because there was a lot of like it was wrapped up perfectly. Like it ended in a good way, well, a bittersweet way. I'll just put it like that. But there was really no need to make a sequel. I mean, for Top Gun Maverick, I didn't think Top Gun needed a sequel, but I saw it. And it actually was really, really good. And now we have a third Top Gun in development, which is going to follow Rooster. So,
Oh.
so I mean, I guess if it's good enough, I'll give it a chance. But if a film is like wrapped up perfectly, I don't think that the only reason why they would ever make another film is just like a shameless cash grab.
Yeah. Um, Especially if they have the original creators' involvement, like Top Gun Maverick, they brought back um, Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, Val Kilmer, who
Yeah,
I will mention that despite the fact that he's still not like he doesn't act as often as he used to because of having throat cancer, he still did a great job.
I thought that computer scene was very genius.
Yes, it was a good way to show how technology has evolved, not
Mm.
just in terms of the military, but also in terms of helping people who have debilitating conditions being able to use that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that if an actor is passionate enough about a project and they want to do another one, that's totally fine. But like I said, a movie like Gladiator, I don't think needed a sequel. I even thought
Yeah,
when this was revealed, I thought it would have been a very bad road to go down.
especially because Ridley Scott, over the years, because he's become more popular and he's gotten more money, he's mainly taken his original work and he's been trying to re-release it or add more content to it. Now, stuff like Blade Runner
Blade Runner
and
20. Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
another one. Blade Runner 2049.
Blade Runner and Alien make sense, and because those are like sci-fi fantasy stories about robots and aliens, so it would be interesting to see um, more worlds,
More world building.
yeah, more world building, and not only that, but the message kind of comes across still to this day. There have been lots of news recently about AI and
Yeah,
maybe extraterrestrial life.
and it makes sense because a lot of people fear that artificial intelligence will take over a lot of the jobs, for voice actors, for animators. And I've seen some AI art. Some of it looks good, but that's nothing compared to humans who put in their blood, sweat, and tears to entertain the audience. And Alien Romulus, I saw that. Did you see that one?
No, not yet.
I will say that's a good sequel because it builds upon the story of Alien in a sense. I'm not sure if they will continue with another one. I think they are because they're making an Alien show set on Earth, which I'm very excited for because apart from Alien versus Predator and Alien versus Predator Requiem, there's been no other films where the xenomorphs have been on Earth. And just the fact that this could be I'm not sure what the plot will be, but for these aliens to be on Earth, that's very terrifying because the xenomorphs are very scary. But overall, in my opinion, is 30 years too long for a sequel? I think so, but if it looks promising and if you give the film a chance, and like you said, if the original creators are attached to it and some of the cast return, I'm not saying all of them have to return, but if a vast majority of them do, then it has the potential to be a good follow up.
If they follow up, if they also want to use new technologies or new messages, then maybe it could be a sequel worth waiting for. Like, for example, Avatar 2, The Way of Water, which I haven't seen, but I have heard they use new technology and stuff like that because James Cameron is always pushing for new methods in filmmaking and new technological
Advances.
methods and advances. Yeah, I've heard you have to use thousands of gallons of water for a specific scene too.
Well, it's called The Way of Water for a reason, man.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, okay. As someone who saw that movie, because I saw Avatar when I was 8 years old, and it comes out 10 years later, it was good. It was good, but nowhere near as good as the first one. I will say this, like, I hope like the next couple can like expand on like the conflict between humans, because the way this one ended, it was very good, but parts of it were very bittersweet. So I will say I'm looking forward to that one.
Um, Other remakes and sequels we were talking about is Jurassic World,
Yeah.
which did have a couple of reoccurring characters, but only in like the last few movies.
Yes, but the last couple, like, they didn't do well. Like, as good, like Jurassic World, which came out in 2015, that was a good one. Chris
Yeah.
Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, and the other cast members that were in this film, they did a good job. They did a good job, but as like the films like went on, like Fallen Kingdom, and it just, they did not do as good as Jurassic World, and I think they could have stopped there, but you know what they do. Sometimes if it makes enough money, they think that's enough to make a sequel. But
Right.
yeah,
Same thing with Star Wars, like
The Force Awakens.
Yeah, that was supposed to be like a sequel, soft reboot, and it did really well. And like, even though it got mixed, like a lot of people were waiting to see what these new characters would do, and then like they got a new director, and they kind of tried to do different things. It failed, and so they brought back the old director, but they it just was not good. And it doesn't help that like J.J. Abrams has basically confessed that like he wings it a lot.
Yeah, not no offense, no offense to him, because he has made some good movies. That's not a good strategy to have.
Yeah.
Because like when you're like directing a film, or like you're bringing like life into a new fandom, or like reinvigorating like a movie into a currently existing fandom, you got to give them what they want, or like give something that they're excited for. Because Star Wars, like, it is one of my most beloved franchises. I love a lot of the stuff in it, but lately not all of it has been good.
So I think like in summary, like give them something new, give them something familiar, give them something like classical. If that makes sense. So like Star Trek, for example, I actually haven't seen them, but I think I think they tried doing like a passing down the torch sort of thing.
Yeah.
In the first one, but then in the sequels they did not do well.
Yeah. My cousin actually has a good mentality for this. Like, it's better to like put something into like a new, currently existing like franchise, than rather like trying to create a whole new franchise. Like, it's very hard to do that, like, if you don't have like a loyal enough audience. Like, if you try to introduce like a new superhero universe or a new cinematic universe, like, it won't do as well as, say, if you made a movie in a currently existing franchise.
Another I think a great example of introducing something new but something old is Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yes, that
which
was
was actually directed by the original director's son because he passed away.
Yes, that was very good. Like, Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, those are how you do like reboots right, because the cast was really really good, and the fact that like they did even get like the original Ghostbusters, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, that was awesome. And Paul Rudd was another. Paul Rudd, Finn Wolfhard, just to name a few. Those were good additions to this franchise. And all I can say is that I don't know if they are making another Ghostbusters, but if they are, I will see it, because if they've done right with these two movies, I think they can do right with another one.
Yeah. Let's see. What are some other good? Let me see. Baki Hanma, maybe, even though that's an anime series.
I mean, it still counts, because like
Yeah.
in certain situations, like in like terms of manga and anime, like say an anime could, or a manga could end like 20 years ago, and they make a reboot now. Like, they recently did another one with Ranma 1.5. I could be saying that wrong. I'm not entirely familiar with that series, but they did a new show on Netflix, and I've heard it's been pretty popular. So that's a good example.
I think another example was um, I think it's called Shin Ultraman, which is directed by the same guy.
The Ultraman franchise. Like, that's been going on for like since the 50s. There's somewhere like
Yeah.
like long time, because they also recently made an Ultraman movie on Netflix, and it was really really good actually.
Yeah. Other movies. I think other movies. Well, not directed 30 years later, but sadly, uh, ones like we haven't been able to see for years because of like development hell.
Yes,
So
yes.
like for example, Alien 3 like sadly did not live up to many people's expectations
No.
because like Alien, the sequel Aliens was already like in kind of development hell until James Cameron went on, but
Yep.
like because of the success of Aliens, it was Fox who immediately wanted to make a third Alien, but even Sigourney Weaver didn't know if she wanted to return to it, and like they kept hiring new directors and writers, and until they eventually landed on David Fincher.
Yep. And another prime example of like a film that's in development hell is a sequel to Sherlock Holmes: The Game of Shadows. Sherlock Holmes and the sequel were both directed by Guy Ritchie, and they were really good. Like Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr. played Watson and Holmes respectively, and they did great. Like this, the first one was a little creepy, had like a bit of a gothic feel to it, and the next one like expanded more into like like a conspiracy to start World War I earlier than expected. But they like the ending like set up a sequel, and like it's been like 10 years, like over 10 years, 12 years actually, since A Game of Shadows came out. There's been no development since. But I do remember reading that Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr. would be interested in reprising their roles if the film got made, and I sure hope that happens.
Same thing with the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like they set up Sinister,
Ugh.
they set up Sinister Six. It and like we were like after what happened to Gwen, we were probably gonna see a more violent Spider-Man. And like
Yes.
he did mention that in No Way Home, but like the fact that it happened all off screen
Is a
is
travesty.
yeah, and it's even sad when apparently I've heard that Andrew Garfield he wanted to be in the Avengers movie, and as good as Tom Holland is, we 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 probably didn't need three Spider Men.
We got robbed.
It's like also like Sonyverse is now doing
Their own
Sinister
cinematic universe.
Sinister Six thing. But the thing is, there's not going to be a Spider-Man because like those movies like Kraven the Hunter, Madam Web,
Exactly.
Venom,
Okay.
Null, they exist in another universe. And what's even more confusing is that okay, spoilers for the ending of Morbius, but
Dude.
Vulture's in it.
Dude, that movie came out like 3 years ago. No one cares.
But in the ending of Morbius, Michael Keaton is there as Vulture, even though he's in the MCU. So, I mean, it's fine using the same actors. Like they've used multiple Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, but I don't know. It just seems like they were using like. It seems like they were trying to bait people in with like.
Yes.
It's trying to be a sequel to Spider-Man: Homecoming.
And to tell you the truth, okay, you haven't seen Madam Web, have you?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Okay. Well, you already know, and for those of you that did unfortunately see this movie like me, you will know that Ben Parker's sister gave birth to Peter at the end of the movie. So this universe has a Spider-Man, but it like takes place like I don't know if it takes place in the same like timeline as like Kraven or Venom or Morbius, but if that is true, then there is a Spider-Man in that universe, but he's just a wee little baby in that movie. But because of how terrible Madam Web is, we're probably never going to see that one again. All I can say is that I would like to see the other Spider-Women do that, because honestly, they looked good in their costumes. Like, if we had just gotten a film about them, it might not have saved the film, but it would have made it a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah. So, also another thing is that in Spider-Man: Homecoming, they were also trying to introduce the Sinister Six. We could have gotten Michael Mando as Scorpion.
Yes! And
it just sucks so much that like with all this developmental hell and rights issues and writers and directors coming and going, like these superhero movies are all over the place.
Yeah, like I understand like the term of Marvel fatigue, but all I can say is that like it took them how long to like acknowledge that big ass statue of a undead god in the ocean from Eternals? How long will it be before we can see Michael Mando as Scorpion or see like other like Marvel villains become the Sinister Six? Because like Jacob just said, like Sony's trying to make their own Sinister Six, but what's the point of making a Sinister Six if there's no Spider-Man to fight?
They've been trying to set up like 3 Sinister Sixes, and they haven't been able to do it right because it's like, and it's just they don't stick to the comics. Or
No,
the
they
characters
don't. No,
or
they don't.
Timelines.
The closest we've ever gotten to a Sinister Six was at the end of Spider-Man: No Way Home, and
True.
but whatever it may be, I mean, I'm willing to give Craven a chance because Craven looks like it could be good, but I actually mentioned this in a previous video. Craven could either be Sony versus Last Hope or the final nail in its coffin.
Yeah.
But either way, that concludes our episode for today. If you liked this video and you want to see more like it, please subscribe. And thank you for watching, and thank you, Jacob, for joining me.
Pleasure to be on here.
All right, awesome. Well, everyone, I'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.